So today during the tooltip session, we're going to focus mainly on the merge feature and the update feature, since that's something that's fairly new. Well, it is new because it's PTV Vistro 2021 feature. So these features will allow you to combine multiple Vstro scenarios or models together and make one master model. And the important part about this as well is if you're working on a project with multiple people, you can also do teamwork within Vistro, which is something that's actually pretty cool. And if you've worked in a lot of bigger projects or tight deadlines, you can understand that teamwork is something that is really important and much appreciated. So let's start with the merge feature and just kind of talking about this teamwork sort of environment. You can see that I have my Austin example pulled up. That's in the example files under help. And it looks like we still have a little lag here, so this is going to be fun. So anyway, in the Austin example, what's District 1 right now is the actual example file. But then I'm going to have Districts 2 and Districts 3. And so maybe this is something that is, you know, one or two additional people are coding these models within a team, and they want to do this, you know, kind of at the same time to code and update these other two districts. So what we can do here is actually make a separate file, and someone can load in this background image to kind of set up a polygon so you can stay within this polygon. And one way to put in this background file is with, you just kind of do a screen capture of the network and throw it into PowerPoint, and then just draw a transparent shape within PowerPoint. It's really low-tech solution. And then you can save it out as a PNG file. And then with Vstro, of course, and the map layer setting, you can load the PNG file into Vstro and kind of scale and get into the position that you want. So that's a way to get this polygon file in here. And I had the pleasure of working with Steve Speth. Many of you probably know who Steve Speth is. He's attended user group meetings in the past. Working with him, he kind of coined the phrase, stay in your polygon, which always kind of stuck with me. We're working on a project, and he's like, stay in your polygon, don't cross the boundary. And kind of for him today, I was thinking of a t-shirt idea for Steve Speth. And so here's a t-shirt and a coffee mug with the words, stay in your polygon. So again, it's just something that affected me here. But so let's look at District 2 right now. And I'll probably only pull up one of these districts because of the lag in the connection. So I'm going to drag over District 2's file into Vistro right now. And I took District 2 from OSM. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So I took this from an OSM file, and I brought it in just to get a network. So I'm worker B number 2, and I coded District 2. And then worker B number 3 is coding District 3 right now. So what you could do when I'm ready to put this into the master model, I could go to File, and then I can go to Export, and then there's this Merge Data button right here. And so then I can just click Merge Data, and then you just save it as this, wait a second for it to pop up, there it goes. Then you can save it as this .vstro merge file. It's basically a vSim network if you just kind of change the extension, but don't tell anybody. So you have this .vstro merge file, and that's going to take District 2 and save it. So you can see I've already had these files created here just for the sake of time. And then I would do the same thing with District 3. I would have those files and then create my merge file with that. So let's say I want to put it back, right? So let's go back into District 1. So let me open District 1 again. Now wait a second for it to load back up, okay? So I have District 1 in here, and let's merge in District 2 and 3. So again, I go back to File, and then I go to Export, import, and then merge data file. And then I can select districts 2 and districts 3, but I have to do it one at a time. So I'll select district 2 and hit open. And it takes a few seconds to kind of read and load in. There it goes on my end, and there it goes on your end. So you can see that district 2 is now in the master file. And then I would do the same process for district 3. And then district 3 should be popping in a few seconds. There it goes on my end. And it looks like it's on your side as well. So now I have this larger network. I'm going to zoom in real quick. So since I followed Steve Spetz's advice here, I stayed within my polygon. I didn't cross the polygons. So you can see I have basically 3 disconnected models right now. So what the master coder, if you want to look at it that way, their job to be then is to connect the districts together and kind of cross the boundaries and then join the networks together. And then you would have one unified master model. And at that point in time, when you have that unified master model, then you could go ahead and put in your signal optimization routes and kind of drag them across from district to district. So for example, let me connect, here, hit escape. Yep, let me connect just this side to this side right now. I can hit the route button and go across districts, and then I would have a signalized corridor going across the 2 districts there. And then one thing to note though is the merge data, as I mentioned before in the What's New presentation, the routes and then the trip assignments and anything that's like kind of linear like that, that doesn't come in the merge file. So only things that come in are the traffic volumes, the geometries, and then the signal data to be safe. Those are the things that come in. Okay, so that is the teamwork side of things. Then the next part is what if you want to do like a merge template or something like that. So the next sample I have is I'm going to use our RCut example that we have in the new alternatives intersection folder in the example file. So I'm going to drag that in. We don't need to save. And we're going to go somewhere, I believe this is North Carolina, if I remember correctly. So we have our RCut, and some of you have seen this before from the example files and from the PTV talks. So what's funny about this RCut is actually there's another one right next to it, and then there's another one next to that. So this is a perfect case where you could basically use templates and kind of copy and paste as you go. You code one and why do the work 2-3 times. So the strategy here would be to take this example file and then save it as maybe a template. So you call this the master, and then you would save another copy as a template. So I'm going to drag in the template file right now. Hold on. Okay. So this is my second file. What you would want to do is move it into the location adjacent. So I could just click on one of the nodes and then right-click and say map this point to background position. And then I would move it to the adjacent RCut intersection. And there you go. You saw it just skip ahead. And so the next thing I would do at this point would be then to go ahead and then export a merge data file, right? So when I do that, then I would have the .vstro merge file for this. So let's go ahead and go back to the master file that I had. Hold on one second. Gotta pick the right file. There we go. Nope. So I already made this file ahead of time just for the sake of complications here. So let's go to import merge data. And then I'm going to select my R-cut template that I've already moved and hit open. And it takes a few seconds. And then you can see that it has basically copied in the other R-cuts into that second location. And if I wanted to repeat this process again, I could put it into the third location, and that would save some time. But there's a few housekeeping things that we have to do with this. Of course, we would have to connect up the legs to the other model to have one consistent, oops, wrong one, to have one consistent R-cut section. And of course, yeah, there's a few little geometry things that you might have to fix along the way, something like that. But yeah, as you can see, that basically saved quite a bit of time by using a template and then inserting it into the model. Lucky for us, in this case, it's basically the exact same intersection, but still, besides the point, it helps save the time. Okay. So our next exercise we're going to do is use the update feature. So let me find my update files really fast. First, we're gonna talk about the teamwork side of the update feature. So let me pull in our master model of back in Austin. So I put the file in. It's gonna. Oh, I'm sorry. This isn't Austin. This is Colorado right now. So, oops, wrong file. Yep, this is too many files for me to work with right now. Okay, so we were back in Austin. So I have the master base file. Okay, now all of these are in here right now. And I'm going to zoom into District 3 and say I'm worker number 3 and I'm working on District 3. And I want to put in some signal timing because right now the signal timing is not in the file because I just took it from OSM. And if I click on one of these intersections, you see that there's no signal data within the sequence, or the phases aren't there. There's not even really any traffic volumes at this intersection right now. So what I would do is go ahead and create default signalization for just a few of these intersections. Okay, and then by creating default signalization, I would have signals in District 3. So to merge this in, I'm going to hit undo really fast. To merge in the changes for District 3, again, I can go to the export tool, but this time I'm going to go to the update data, not the merge, the update data, because really I just want to update this network. I don't want to merge in a network on top of it. So I go to update data, and then I select the update file for District 3 and hit save. Oops, I did an export, didn't I? So I want to do the import. Import update data. Okay, so then I have when I hit the import of the update data, I have an option to either import just the signal timings, import the geometry and the lane configurations, or import the turn volumes. So in this case, the geometry is the same. I can ignore that one. I can't remember if I put turn volumes in or not within this, so let's just click that in. And then I definitely want signal timing. And then I'll check those two boxes, and then I'll click import, and I'll do some magic in the background here. Yeah, I got to select the file, hit open, and then after a few seconds of thinking, okay, you can see after I zoom in and you guys catch up a little bit, you'll be able to see that in the sequence now, there's a signal timing now placed in District 3 at pretty much every signal at District 3. And then if I click over at District 2, you can see that there aren't any signal timings in Signal 2 because the worker just updated District 3. So again, that's another way to kind of use teamwork. So if you had an existing network that was already been coded, but you maybe have a new counting program that did their counts for the year, or you did like an entire retiming plan for numerous corridors, you can then split up the work within the model and then use this update feature to bring it back into the master network. So hopefully, based on some of the presentations that we saw today with the larger networks, hopefully these two features with merge and update would definitely help out and split up the work with Vstro. Now, the last really cool thing we can do with the update feature is be able to take CSV files from maybe Synchro and actually merge them into one Vstro file. And when I say merge, I mean combine. I don't want you to confuse it with merge. So it's combining it into one Vstro file from several CSV files. So let me pull up the next example here. So what I'm going to do, see, I'm going to show you my folder structure here. I have 3 CSV files that we got from a customer. And these 3 CSV files are organized by time of day. So we have the AM peak period with AM volumes and AM signal timings. And then we have the other peak periods throughout the day. Now in Synchro, as you know, many of you may have used it before, that these would be separate files. And it's very problematic to make like one update in one file and then have to make that update. And in this case, it's only 3. But in some other cases, it could be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different files. So having it in one scenario management in Vistro is very powerful to do. So what we're going to do is take this CSV file. We're going to start with the AM and just drag it into Vistro. And Vistro's smart enough to know that this is a CSV file. It takes a few seconds with CSV files to kind of read all the different lines that are coming in right now, so we'll be patient. And we're being patient. Not only do this one time, because I'm not that patient of a person. So it's loading in still. And on my end, yes, we're back in the ocean here. And so this is in Colorado outside of Denver, so it's put us in the Atlantic Ocean right now. But at this point in time, don't worry about it. You want to make sure you merge in all of the files or combine all of the files in with the update tool. Make sure they're in first before you move everything, okay? Because it would be a big problem if you move something now and then imported something later. So in this file in this AM, let's just leave it as this, and we can go ahead and already save as. Okay, so let's save this as. I'm going to call it Master Model 1. Oops. Let's just call it excuse me, MM1. Okay. And so this is going to be our master model. And within our master model, we want to create a bunch of scenarios. We want to create an AM scenario, a PM scenario, and then that off-peak scenario. And it doesn't matter right now that it's just AM. So I'm going to click Add Scenario. Okay, so we have scenario 1, and I'm going to rename it AM. Okay, and then I'm going to add scenario 2 and rename it and call it PM. And then I'm going to add scenario 3 and rename it and call it off-peak. Okay. Yep. And so what we can do now, again, I'm already have skipped a step because I've created these update files, but I would basically drag in each CSV in a separate Synchro instance and then save that update file from export update and then I would merge that back into my master model. So let's go to the PM scenario right now. Okay, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to import update data. And again, I don't want to update the geometry because since they're peak period models, the geometry should be the same between the networks. So I'm really only going to focus on the signal timing and then the turn volumes here. And so I'm going to click import. And again, we're in PM. And I'm going to import the master PM Vistro update file and hit open. And it might take a few seconds again. Okay, and I think it's in. So now I have the PM data within the PM scenario, and I'll verify this in a second. And then I'll go to the off-peak period and do the same thing in the off-peak period. So now I'm in the off-peak scenario, and I'm going to go to File, Import, Update Data, and again, select the signal timing and turn volumes and click Import. And then I'm going to click the off-peak data from my CSVs. And that's merging in that off-peak signal timing and traffic volumes into this scenario. So now all the data is in my three scenarios. And so if I zoom in, I'm going to stay in the ocean right now. I'll zoom in down here at the bottom. Okay, and I'm going to click on this intersection, and I'm going to also turn on the traffic volume so you can kind of see how the traffic volumes and then how the signal timing changes as I switch scenarios, just to prove that it works. So right now we're at off-peak. We have, let's see, at this bottom eastbound, we have 1,124 vehicles going straight. And then we have 14 seconds on our left turns in phases 1 and 5. So if I go to now the PM scenario, okay, thinking, okay, now we're in the PM scenario. Yep, so the volume changed in the eastbound through direction to 1118, and then I think the left turns change. I can't. I'm not remembering what was there before. I think it was 18. I said before. Maybe now it's 14. But the phasing has changed a little bit. And then if we go to AM, we should see some more changes. Yep. Already the volume's down to 1103. And then well, it's back to 14. But yeah, the signal timing is changing throughout everything. So that's one way to get everything into the model. So now that we have everything packaged together, we want to go to the base scenario before we move the master model into the right location. So go to the base scenario, which is basically a copy of AM, but that's okay. And I'm going to click on this intersection just because I kind of know where it is. And I'm going to, again, go to map this point to background position. And I'm going to lose you probably here as I zoom in and out of Bing. So I apologize, but we'll meet back somewhere in Denver. So just bear with me. I'll let you know when we catch up. So I have to find Arapahoe and Denver, and then find Syracuse Way, I believe, is what it was. And then, yep. And then as soon as I click on this intersection, our network will pop in to the actual Bing base map. Now, one of the things with Synchro, as I mentioned before in the What's New presentation, is that the Bezier curvature from the Synchro file doesn't translate to PTV software because we actually have the poly points or the spline points, and that gives a more accurate curvature anyway. within everything. So one thing you will have to do, and please do this again in the base file, so it'll update every single scenario in there, so you really only have to do it one time, is go ahead and then just kind of match the curvature using your spline points to whatever sort of precision you choose. I mean, if you want to put this into Vistro and match the pavement markings, you're probably going to go into Vistro's transparency mode with the Control A or Control W, or using the map tools, and you can match the striping exactly. It's kind of up to you, again, on the level of detail that you wish to code these things to. But yeah, you can go ahead and get in here and change the geometry up through the whole network. And just to show you that it kind of propagated through the other scenarios, I'm going to go to, let's just pick the off-peak, and I'm going to click on the off-peak scenario. It'll take a second to load back up. And again, you see we're in the off-peak scenario, and the spline point changes that I just made are represented in the network. So again, you only have to do this effort just kind of one time to remap the base map. You know, a lot of times too, like the synchro networks are old that people have been using, and maybe the base map was some, I don't know, some projected aerial at some point in time before Bing was really even around. So who knows? But once you get it into the Bing base maps, the very important part is it's consistent with the rest of PTV's products. And again, it goes back to that whole urban mobility system. What you see in Vzoom would be on the base map is the same way it is in Vstro. And again, what you see in Vzoom, as I showed in some of the videos, and of course you can click the links and watch those videos, everything will match up on the lanes the way it was shown in Vstro and how it interacts with Vzoom. So I think we are done with time, Bill?
Yeah, right on schedule there. Thank you, Adam. That's really exciting to see the merge and update and importing multiple files from our competitor and how nicely we can move it over. A question from that was just the location of the, you know, why was it in the ocean to begin with? Do you want to address that?
Yeah. I don't actually want to address it, but I will. Okay, so it has to do with the fact with synchro, they didn't really have scaling figured out at some point in time, and you had to manually match the scale of your map to like what they called real world and model world, I think, conditions, and the actual base point that the model was coded on was more or less arbitrary at the time. So I think it just so happens like mostly that those base points end up in the ocean.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just 0, 0 on the prime meridian. I'm not even quite sure, but yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
It's just one of those things.
One little tip on that would be too, I know when we've had some issues, sometimes people say you just can't see the network when they first bring it in because the ocean is dark black. So one thing would be to toggle off the Bing momentarily so that your background image is white, or, you know, just the blank, that way you can see it. But yeah, basically. But good points. Bring all the scenarios in first, all that way, then later switch to base scenario and then move it from there. And then when you modify your curvature, make sure you're in the base scenario. So that little white box next to scenario is ultra important already for those of you who have used Vistro or are well familiar. If not, and you're just starting to poke around in there, it's a really easy tool to create and manage your scenarios, but make sure whenever you're about to modify something in your network that you look and make sure that's the scenario you want to modify it in, and know that the base scenario is our special case where you can modify it once and then you're done, and it'll ripple through all the other scenarios. So, excellent.
Yeah, I have to say, just make sure that when you open up a file, most of the time, I would say, if you have scenarios within your Vistro file, it's going to open up to scenario 1 first. just don't get super excited, I say, and think you're in the base and start doing things, because you're really going to be in scenario one. But again, yeah, just check, make sure, verify that you're in the right place. I myself have done it a few times, where I got super excited with Vistro. As you can tell, I get really excited with it. But you know, and if you're going to do anything really with the master models and all of that stuff, it's just good practice with any software is just make a copy for every now and then, just to have a backup, just in case.
No doubt. Good tips. Copy and save.
Yep.
Yes, very good. Stands the test of time for sure. All right, great. Well, as a little segue between the tooltips section and the hot seat, which we'll do in just a moment, I will make just another general announcement here, which is I know Liz has other ways that you can access this, but I do want to point out that through the GoToWebinar interface, there's a little part called handouts. It's next to polls and chat, and if you click that, it allows you access to the PDH form. That's one form for the full UGM. So if you download it once, you're good to go, and you can keep track of all your PDH hours that you're spending with us, and use that for your filing and so forth for your licensing records. So, all right, with that, and hopefully you're all logging in or have recently logged into the hop-in account. You can join us in a little bit. Let's transition over to our last section of the day in the formal program, which is our Vistro Hot Seat. This is your opportunity to ask any questions specifically related to Vistro development, or wish list. How come you haven't done this yet? I've asked for it 10 times, but hopefully that keeps getting lower and lower, because Adam's superstar over there getting stuff into the software at record speed. So we thank him, as well as our whole product and coding team, of course, development team. So with all that, we've had a little bit of back and forth on how we're going to handle the hot seat. You can definitely type it in the question box. Liz and Adam G, are we also letting them raise hands with this interaction? Maybe we can unmute as we go for people that want to raise their hand too. Let's just do that unless it gets out of control. So feel free to, if you want to speak, have your voice recorded and heard on this, please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll get you. You can ask your question directly. For the time being, we do have one question for the hot seat. Hot sheet, that's a whole different channel. Hot seat here that we have been tracking so far. Let me double check that I've got the right list here. So we've got a few of them, actually. One of them has to do with any documentation that we may have that compares results of Vistro versus other software. And the specific one says, in Canada, oftentimes agencies require HCM-based analysis, but turns out they only accept analysis from Synchro. Since all the software packages are HCM-based, does PTV has any documentation that compares the modeling results? And we can talk about that for a little bit. Adam, another one we have queued up already is how to use VMT for TIAs done in small areas as a performance measure. So we can easily talk about both of those. Oh, number 3, people want that T-shirt, evidently, Adam. So we have a.
Oh yeah, well I could actually send the link for that. I'll get a kickback too, so that'd be great. So it's on it's on like a T-shirt site. So should we? I'll load up. I got probably the Atlanta example again is maybe the quickest off the top of my head to show the VMTs.
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
So it's in the example folder under the TIA section. I got to share my screen again, don't I?
Yeah.
I'll have a conversation with myself.
Maybe while you're doing that, I can talk a little bit about the documentation of different results. Okay. We've had agencies that have hired consultants to do exactly that. You heard Eugene's presentation earlier today. from VTA, where they looked at different software packages. We've got some others in the wings working or recently have done that. We're not distributing those directly, but we can always follow up with you after the fact and put you in contact with the agency staff so you can touch base with them. It's always a fine line as a software provider. You know, we're calling out names to a certain degree, but we're not in the business necessarily of just you know, advertising comparisons of us versus others, but we're happy to do so. The other thing that really makes it convoluted is, you know, there's things that can be more beneficial or less beneficial. You know, every software has their own ways that you input certain things. There also tends to be in our industry mindset that if you've been around longer, somehow you're the gold standard, when that's not necessarily the truth. There's ways you could compare the differences depending on what type of analysis can be done or not done, because certain things can't be done in certain competitor software, but we've made ways for you to do that. So there's kind of bigger picture questions about the comparisons. And then when you get into exact like lane group calculations, you know, that's where it really oftentimes comes down to the specific input of one analyst versus another, and whether or not they know what they're doing, not in a bad way, but just unfamiliarity with certain software. And so things that you call as one parameter in one software might be called something else in Vstro, and did it actually come over correctly? We've had a number of cases in the tech support line where when I get the other files from Vistro or HCS or whatever it might be, it most of the time boils down to exactly that case. And when you filter through it and actually get all the inputs in the apples to apples comparisons, then all of those things that at first seem like, oh my goodness, there's a big difference, all that stuff goes away. So that's kind of the state of where we're at. We will be updating a white paper with regards to, you know, Vistro results versus, we like to compare to the actual standard, which is the highway capacity manual. And we'll be revamping that. We did one comparison like that when we first created Vistro. Since that time, the highway capacity manual has been updated as well. So we're going to be updating to reflect those changes, but also do know that we are actively involved in the Highway Capacity Committee, and I chair the Interrupted Flow Subcommittee. So I do pay attention and spend a lot of time and am actively involved in that. So all of that filters through. It's not just me, of course, but we are intimately aware of the procedures and implementing them. So that's all good. We can follow up on that general question, Adam, unless you have something else to say on that. We can follow up with any of you that asked that, and also know that we have other context for you, and we'll be developing some other reference materials in the near future to do that. So Adam, why don't you go ahead and talk about the VMT, and then I'll scroll through a number of questions that have come in while I've been talking.
Okay. I mean, as we saw in a couple of the presentations, well, for me, it was this evening, for you this morning. The importance of VMTs obviously is starting to be something that we were looking at, and that's why we put this feature into Vistro 2021. So the VMTs are only accessible through the trip generation part of Vistro. So that is the three center buttons, or so to speak, on the workflow panel here. The first one is trip generation, and that's summarizing the zones that you would have within your network, and you need that obviously to start the trip generation. And then as you go through the trip distribution and then ultimately into the trip assignment, that's when you can start accessing the VMT value. So each one of these, I guess that's the assignment path between the zone and the gate. So this line, you know, right here where my mouse is hovering, the last column to the right gives you the vehicle miles traveled. And if I was in the metric units, that would also give you the vehicle kilometers traveled. It would say VKT. But the vehicle miles travel is essentially just the distance, and it's the columns to the left of it, the answer. It's the number of vehicles traveling on that route times the length that the route has to take, and then it gives you the vehicle miles traveled for that route. And then these vehicle miles traveled then get summed up at the bottom row here, and that's the total in this case, it's the project, it's all the zones and gates. But then again, you could go back to the trip generation tab and actually turn off the analyses for either one of the zones or the other zones. And then it would be just for that zone that you have active at the time. And if you notice in the Atlanta example, one of them is actually removed. So lucky for us, we get to show what that means. So that's zone 2, I believe, was removed. Yeah. If we go back to the traffic assignment tab and look at the routes for zone 2, that's kind of in the middle here. On the right side, there's actually a negative VMT shown for those removed trips. So when you sum things up, it's taking into account the zones that are adding traffic, and then it's subtracting traffic as well at the same time. So it's a really, I guess, good way to calculate your VMTs.
Yeah, I'll just add to that a couple things. One is, of course, this is a deterministic level VMT calculation, right? Yeah. It's not going to be as robust as something out of a demand model. Then again, there's these implementations. California, of course, is the big one. Others are looking at it. There's times when people want to know some VMT values without a full VM. I mean, yes, of course. In the ivory tower sense, we should all be doing it the best way possible. But in the practical and reality sense, people often are not going to be accessing a full demand model. For California, I'm not an SB, 743. Aaron Elias, I know you're out here. You're going to text me if I'm wrong. Measure or Eugene compliance person, but I can tell you that already the ways that gets implemented is being handled, in different places. VTA, for instance, has an excellent looking web-based tool to estimate VMT without going through the full demand model. So that's one to check with Eugene on, or do a Google search, or it's the Bing search, to not call out just Google, for SB 743 calculators and things like that. This is our answer to the specific question of what is the VMT of the added or removed, right? The project-based, or what we call site trips in Vistro. It is one of many ways that you can look at this. It's a tool. It's there for your use. A lot of the analyses that get done in a tool like Vistro are looking scenario on scenario. So you want to see, like, what is the differences between scenarios. So we feel like it's a very nice thing to do. We were already calculating volumes and links anyway if you draw your network to scale. So why not give you the VMT? You can then compare scenario A versus B versus C, or like Adam said, even without new scenarios, you can just go in and toggle on and off which zones are being active. But if you do have different with project scenarios and you want to see the effect of that, at least you can get the deltas of the new project trips. So it doesn't give you the VMTs of the existing traffic, of course, but again, a lot of times when you're looking at evaluations, it's on what the changes are for the future. So that's that one. Sorry, I'm elaborating a little bit long on that, but that's a good trip. And as Adam mentioned, you can do negative trip generation in Vistro as well for cases where you have redevelopment sites. So with that, Adam, I've got a slew of new questions here, which is great. Let's see. First one, let's talk about some signal stuff, since I know that's one of your favorite topics, Adam. And let's see, hold on, I want to go in order. Any plans to add max inhibit as a signal timing parameter in Vistro?
Yep, that one's on our list.
All right.
It is a plan that we have to add the max inhibit. I mean, right now we have the minimum maximum recalls. Of course, that's not the same thing, but yeah, that's definitely on our list, and it's been a priority for a while. Probably one of the last few signal related features that we have.
All right, and a follow-up on that same kind of signal-specific topic, can minimum split be added as a signal optimization parameter? Currently, the software uses the actuated setting min, time, and yellow plus all red as the minimum split.
I'm trying to think about that one. So basically, you would have two detected splits, or yeah, because we have the minimum time, so that's so you would have minimum green and then plus all red plus yellow. That would be the minimum split, basically, and then you would have the maximum split, which would be the max green plus the yellow and all red. And then there's the variation in between. So I guess I'm kind of confused on the question.
Maybe the question is to be able to actually, I don't know, we'll have to follow up or unmute this power user who we've known for a long time.
Okay.
But I'm reading it inexperienced on some of the way this might be questioned as it may be, but it may be a call to actually allow that as an input instead of building it up from the different components. Maybe there's some variation there between what we assume would be minimum versus what really is. But why don't we just gnaw on that for a little bit in the background? I'll move into another one. Let's see, this one's different topic altogether. When we see Vistro, Vzoom, and vSim share the map server we see that they share the map server with the new updates. Seems as though the response time to load the maps has slowed down substantially from the OpenStreetMap that was in Vzoom 2020. And will we be doing, sorry, I ran out of width here. Will we be doing something to speed this back up again and perhaps with more bandwidth serving these maps? So the question may be, well, you heard it, but maybe from the Vzoom side. But...
We can look into that, yeah.
Okay. Great. Are you going to transfer the trip generation functionality of Vstro to vSim so that it can be used for traffic impact studies? So that it, meaning vSim, I guess, can be used for traffic impact studies.
So the actual like zone and gate functionality, and then just the real quick trip assignments.
That's how I
would assume. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, within vSim, of course, you can create the zones. They don't have gates. It's considered a zone. And then there's the matrix, and then you would have to go in and then basically run the assignment between the zones there. What you could do is actually use Vistro and vSim together, well, maybe at the same time. It depends on network sizes or something like this. But I would have to talk to the vSim team on that and see how they want to simplify maybe the assignment capabilities that they have right now. But probably one strategy could be is like if you were in Vistro, you could use the zone and gate tools within Vistro, and then when you open up the Vistro file in vSim, it basically opens up automatically. That's going to take those gate and zones and basically just make them zones on the vSim side. So, and then actually the paths will also, I believe, transfer over as well.
All right. Question related to the difference and pointing out, being clear on the differences between the vSim previewer that is part of Vistro itself versus a full vSim. So it says PTV should be clear that the vSim viewer that comes with Vistro cannot replace a full vSim analysis when you have a full vSim license. And sometimes there's people trying to put too much expectation on the vSim previewer, comparing it to sim traffic, which it is not. So do you have any that's accurate? And thank you for the statement. Is there anything you want to add to that? Mm-hmm.
Well, I would definitely, I mean, say that's the true. You know, the preview is sort of this minimal preview, and in my opinion, how I've been using it and kind of writing about it as well, is that the preview is used to kind of confirm the settings that you've put in Synchro. So if you set up detectors, for instance, using the preview, you'll see the detectors and how long they are and the position that you have, and maybe even see that you forgot a detector when vehicles aren't moving or something like that. So I use the preview as a good back check just to make sure that it's set up correctly. But that's true. The preview currently as it sits is not going to give you the result. It will just give you the visual confirmation that, hey, you may have a problem here or a problem there. You would have to open up the vSim model, or I'm sorry, the Vista model using the A&M, and then that would bring in into Vista for the full simulation to get the results. No, we've had internal discussions and plans to, and I can't give you a timeline on when this is going to be, but we are talking about it to actually have some sort of connection with Vistro now that we have node numbers and signal numbers and all that stuff's all matching. And we have the A&M all cleaned up to basically provide you a really good simulation out of the box. What I would like to do then is match with Vistro and kind of get some average KPIs, some basic KPIs to kind of give you a taste of what Vistro can do and what it can be used for, and then actually bring that simulation data back into Vstro and have a report with some basic simulation data. Again, I don't really like comparing to other products, and I mean, if you use some traffic on certain projects, I'm sure that's fine for you. But then again, if you're using it on other projects that are maybe a little bit more complicated, that have transit, that have very detailed pedestrian type configurations, as well as freeway functionality and things like that, that's probably not the best tool to use.
All right, thank you. Question, can we export multiple scenarios, signal timings into one RBC control in different patterns?
That's a good question. That's another thing on my plate that I've been looking at. I want to, we've kind of had this concept of thinking about time slice, right? That may even be a Vstro term or some way to think about it. To have the RBC looking at different time slices, and then when it goes into Vstro or to Vistro, those time slices would match up as patterns. So we've thought about this, and again, I can't give you an answer and a date, but at least we're thinking about it, right? That the scenario could have an attribute where you could say this is the signal timing between this hour and this hour, or this period and this period, and then that would have a place or a home to go on the Vistro and Vstro side.
All right.
So the answer is no currently.
Sorry. Would it be possible to add the ability to lock rows at the top of the signal timing window? Would like to have the descriptive information such as approach name, orientation, and lane configuration remain at the top of the window when I scroll down to view the LOS and delay information.
So yeah, we have the lane configuration here. As far as locking, I mean, we added these approach directions up top. So it would kind of give you an orientation of where you are. I mean, maybe, I don't know if you're using the lane configurations or approach here to kind of orientate what column you're in. But for example, if I scroll down, into the signal timing area, I have the up arrow, the down arrow, the left and right to kind of give me an idea of what column I'm in. And another thing is if you kind of look into that intersection on the map, you can turn on the phasing on the map, and it will kind of give you, again, some correlation of what phasing is going in which direction. So it's slightly different than maybe some other softwares you're looking at, but I mean, the tools are there to kind of orientate yourself and where you're at. Another way to maybe lock, I don't know if lock's the right word, but you can close these tables, I guess is a good way to call it, and kind of make them expandable or contractible to show some of the information that you want to see on the workflow table at the time. So that's another way to kind of give you information with the lane configuration arrows. If sometimes, this might be information overkill and it's really hard to find something. We implemented the search bar, and I believe it was, maybe it was the release version of Vistro 2020, or maybe it was the end of version 7, I can't remember. But we have the search bar now, so if you type in a word, it kind of, again, shortens the view here. But again, that's not going to bring in the lane configuration. But hopefully that kind of helps.
Yeah, I call those other parts of those workflow tables subtables, so you can always hide them, those little arrows.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. I get the question. I will first, through years of marriage,
Yeah.
Jeremy, start by first validating your question, sir, which is, yes, we understand why you might want to hide
Yeah.
or do like an Excel and just freeze the panes so you can scroll down and see it. Having acknowledged that, now let me give you some workaround solutions, which is what Adam
Yeah.
started with. And the other workaround I would just add, Adam, my mind went as well to the network view, but is if you can just show the multiple. I mean, you can, if you're zoomed in close enough, you can show the phasing, you can show the, you see the striping, of course, on the network, but you can also post the volumes, you can post the LOS delays, and those things can all be occurring, side by side. So while it's not necessarily the direct answer being asked, and the user may very well have already known all these other things, I'll mansplain it as the term I've heard here, and tell you you can do this as at least some kind of workaround. So hopefully either for you or for
Yeah.
anyone else during the hot seat, that is a beneficial way for you to see just this interaction, of course, staying interactive. And of course, you can pop out the tables and make them bigger on your monitor. So we've got a number of ways for you to do that.
Exactly.
Cool.
And that's actually, I would log that, as a feature request. I mean, that's not that's, I've heard that before, so we can take a look at it and see what we can do.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, we're at 1 o'clock. Well, for us Pacific Coasters.
10 p.m.
We're at 10 p.m. So talk about revealing age. I remember when the public service announcement would say, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Do you imagine how creepy that would be these days to have that show up on as you're watching television? At any rate, yes, it's 10 p.m. in Germany. It's 1 p.m. in Oregon and 4 p.m. in Arlington, Virginia, and wherever you may be. It is time to go and transition to the PTV social hour.